Right. Hey, y'all. Hey, this is Erica Bishop with Evolve and Elevate with Erica. We're so excited to be here with you all today. Welcome. Come on in. Come on in. We're excited to be here with you. My name is Erica Bishop from Evolve and Elevate, as well as Empowered to Prosper Coaching and Consulting. And with me tonight, I have Pastor Sean Dreer, who is with me as well. And tonight, we're going to be talking about grateful hearts, wise souls as we're doing our Thanksgiving special, as this is the week of Thanksgiving, but every day is a day of Thanksgiving. So as you're coming in tonight, we're asking that you tag, like, and share. Let someone know that we're here and comment because we're going to have a very interactive conversation. So we wanted to just have a little fun tonight. So, as we're talking about having grateful hearts and wise souls, we're going to be talking about some of those things that we've learned over the years that have given us wisdom, and some of those things that we have learned from our parents, grandparents, that we've heard along the journey that didn't make sense then, but it makes a lot of sense now. And we take that as wisdom that we have learned along the way. And if you would like to be a part of this conversation, let me know. I'm going to put the link in the chat. Hopefully that you'll be all will be able to see it. I'm gonna find a way to put the link in the chat so that you all, if you want to be a part of the conversation, you can and join us tonight because we want to have a little bit of fun tonight as well. But we thank you all for being here with us. So, Sean, I'm gonna let you take a moment to introduce yourself to the people. Welcome. Thank you for being here with me tonight.
Absolutely. I'm glad to be here. Excited to be here. Glad to be at the cool kids table here at Evolve with Erica. It's been great over the past couple of weeks, and so just grateful to be back. As she mentioned, I'm Sean Dreer. I'm a change agent. And I figure that's the best way to describe it. My contributions in the faith space as well as the coaching space. So I'm just grateful to be here and excited about this conversation and ready to engage with the folks.
All right. So I'm going to start off with one that I kind of learned along the way, and that had ended up being wisdom for me. I didn't understand it then, but I understand it now. And this is one of the ones that I learned was don't allow someone else's lack of preparation become your emergency. So,
Strong, strong.
so I had to kind of share that one with, as a matter of fact, I had to share that one with my daughter this past week because she had a situation where someone reached out to her that needed something and they waited until the day of and they were like, I need this. And so she was running around trying to contact everybody. I need to know if you have this for a friend. And I had to explain to her, I said, well, when did this person know? Like over a month ago. And they waited until today. So don't allow someone's lack of preparation to become your emergency. So if they knew a month ago and they waited to the last minute, now it becomes an emergency for you. No, 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 no. We don't do that. You're gonna have to carry on as you need to. You definitely want to help people as you can. You definitely want to be your best to try to help, but it does not have to be an emergency on your part because it was a lack of preparation on their part. No, we won't do that one.
That
And
is that
oftentimes
that
we
is
get
so
caught up.
strong.
Yeah, well, oftentimes we get caught up. And I used to be that person as a people pleaser. I used to be that person as a people pleaser and find myself trying to fix and do for other people, but they did not take the time to prepare for themselves. And it ended up being an emergency for me. Nope, not so. Not doing it. Mm-mm.
That is so good. You came out the gate swinging. Just that is so good. But it's and it's important. I'm glad you brought up that people pleasing element because that's the part that gets us tripped up. That's why we feel, and most of the time we never actually take the time to really step back and say, why do I feel like this is my problem? And that's a hard question to ask ourselves, but sometimes you got to step back and really ask, why do I feel like this is my problem? Because you'll get involved in somebody else's problem. And I've had this experience. So you could tell me if you've been in this boat before. I've had this experience where I get involved in other people's problems. And when I get in the ring, they leave the ring.
Come on.
So not
And then
only
you
am
are
I involved,
swinging by yourself.
that part. So not only have I gotten involved in somebody's problem that's not my problem, they left me with their problem.
Mm-hmm.
It happens all the time. That's a strong start. That's a strong
Mm-hmm.
start. It's
Mm-hmm.
necessary. So how did you get past that? So the you brought up the people pleasing aspects. How did you get past that people pleasing part?
I got past the people pleasing part as I got to a place where I began to heal and honor my own emotions. And I began to honor myself because I realized that by dishonoring who I was really teaching people how to treat me. And when I really began to take the scales off of my own eyes and remove my own rose colored glasses and trying to see people through this ideology that I had put before them to put them in a place that they did not belong because I had people miscategorized and I had people in places they did not belong. And I had to go before God and apologize because I had put many people before God. And He had to let me know, nope, you're in a place of idolatry. Let's get that right first. And let's deal with your heel and get your heart healed. And when God took the scales off of my eyes and I really began to see people for who they were, and He allowed me to see that there was not any reciprocity in the relationship, and I really began to see that they didn't feel about me the way I felt about them, it was a strong wake up call. Strong wake up call.
That is strong. When you said that, something came to my mind that somebody said to me some years ago. The guy said, "Your goodness will never make them grateful."
Oh, y'all, let me tell you something. Get a pen and some paper and write this stuff down. Because this is going to be good tonight.
The man
Your
said,
goodness, what?
Your goodness will never make them grateful."
Mm-mm.
So, gratitude, speaking of Thanksgiving, gratitude is a character issue. So, we think that the better we are to people, the more grateful they will be. When gratitude is about character. Because what I've discovered is that sometimes the better you are to people, the more entitled they become.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of being grateful, now they feel entitled.
Mm-hmm.
And so now you start to see how people feel. So even when you mentioned going through the process of having to get over those people pleasing tendencies and being able to manage your own emotions and those kinds of things, because most of the time we'll go above and beyond for people. We'll do all of this stuff hoping to get a certain response from people, and then we never get that response from people, and it turns into this degree of entitlement. So now people feel like you should be doing this, and you never really understand that you have that kind of relationship with someone until you tell them no.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Mm-hmm.
you discover that most people never really liked you, they liked your yes.
Come on.
They didn't love you, they loved your yes. So as long
Mm-hmm.
as the answer was yes, everything was good. But as soon as you set boundaries, as soon as you enact parameters, people, now all of a sudden you a bad person. Now all of a sudden this and that and the third. So I had to learn that the hard way. It doesn't matter how good you are to people. Your goodness will not make them grateful.
Mm-mm. And that spawned another thought for me. This was another one. Today's favor is tomorrow's expectation.
Mm, that's good. You got to unpack that. You got it. That's good. You got to unpack that.
What you do is a favor for somebody on one in one hand, and it was really good. That yes that you gave, that's an expectation that they put on you to always deliver at that level all the time because they benefited from that. Because see, some things I'm doing this for you today out of my excellence, out of favor, out of grace, out of who I am. But there are so many who, because they want to benefit from that, they expect that to always be an expectation continually. And then when it's not delivered upon, then they like, well, what happened? But that was a favor. That wasn't the expectation. That was a favor.
That is so good. So my grandmother, listen, some of the stuff that my grandmother used to say, it would. Now that I think about it, now that I'm older, I realize it sounded weird when she said it.
Oh yeah.
But now that I'm older, I'm like, okay, that was really weird. It was a weird example, but she would say it with such confidence. And so it made me think about it with what we're talking about here. So I was going through a particular situation. I can't remember how old I was when she first said this to me, but I felt like I was being used by some people I thought were my friend.
Mm.
And I remember coming to my grandmother and I remember saying, hey, I've been doing this, this, and this, and I feel like people are just taking advantage of me and blah, blah, blah. And so, like, my grandmother wasn't always cute and cuddly. She was
Very
sometimes
blunt.
she was honest to a fault. So she loved people, but she was very honest. So I'm in distress. Like I'm really trying to sort. That was at that age where you think everybody your friend, and so you just kind of struggle. I'm trying to sort through it. This lady looked at me in my as one of my old coworkers used to say. She looked at me in my optical muscle and said, "If I had a lollipop, I lick it too." I mean, she was serious. And I just kind of stood there. I didn't know what to say. And then she began to explain what she meant by that. And I realized that sometimes it is easy for us to blame the other person for what they did and
Mm-hmm.
never take responsibility for what we allowed.
Mm-hmm. We make it easy for people
We
sometimes.
make it easy for them. We make it easy for them. And so when even now, I think about that. I think about, am I putting myself in a situation that allows someone else to do what seems natural? Listen, this lady looked at me and said this in real life. And I'm like, did she
I
just
love it.
I'm like, did she just say this to me? But even though it was weird at the time, it made a lot of sense. And it helped
Yeah.
me to assume accountability and not just always push the responsibility off on somebody else. Because it's easy to say, oh, if that person would have, if that person would have. But in
Mhm.
truth, they were only doing what I was allowing them to do.
Right, right, right. So as everybody's coming in, so as people are coming in, they're probably like, Lord, what are they talking about? So this one is a Thanksgiving special, and we're just talking about things that we have learned over our journey of life and sayings that we have gained along the way that didn't make any sense back then, that we've gotten maybe from our elders, friends, grandparents, whomever. But now we understand that it was wisdom because as we lived a little bit longer, we understand what it means now. So we're sharing those things. And if you have some, please put them in the comments and let us know so we can talk about it. And I'm going to go into this and try to figure out how to give you the link if you all want to join us in this conversation tonight. So this was called Grateful Hearts and Wise Souls. And we've just been talking about a couple of different things that we have learned along the way. That we have gained some wisdom over the years that have helped us, that we keep it top of mind as we go through different scenarios, and we've learned how to set boundaries, and we've healed in different ways, and we become a lot more spiritually mature, more professionally mature, and then we've grown in certain ways. And this is one that my mom says all the time. And you know my mother, no,
Absolutely.
no filter at all. So this one now, and she wrote me a whole list. I said, "Come on, Deborah, and write me a list because you know she got a whole bunch of them." At some point, I'm gonna make her write a book. I don't know when, but at some point, she's gonna have to write a book. But this is one that she says all the time: every tub must sit on its own bottom.
Ah, that listen. That sounds like an old person saying. That
Okay,
sounds
but it makes
that's
sense. That means you have to stand for yourself. You have to be your own foundation. You have to take care of you, and you have to learn how to stand on your own. That means that it's time. You got to cut the cord, and you can't be held up by somebody else. There comes a time that you got to be able to be who you are and stand there for yourself and be able to handle the weight of whatever is coming in your wheelhouse. It is so true. And I
so.
thought I would never say it, but I've said it myself to my own truth. And now look, every tub got to sit on its own bottom.
So was that hard for you in terms of like the transition into
Oh, honey, my mama cut me off on my wedding day. Let me tell you about that story.
story time?
Story time. Let me tell you about that story. I got it on video. Um, the day I got married, my mom told me, you know, when you give your well wishes, she said, Errica, she said, I have raised you to be a woman of your own conviction. That's when I heard the cord snap. Clip, clip. I never did. She was like, you done, girl. I'm through. So that's when I knew I had to my tub was on its own bottom at that point. Definitely. And you have to. You there comes a time when you have to get the grit that's necessary for life. When life get to lifing, you really understand what you are made of. That's why life shows up the way it does, to truly authenticate what's in you, to let you know how can you really apply the things that you are responsible for. See, we're not in atmospheres just to be in atmospheres. You haven't been up on the teaching just to be up on the teaching. You're responsible for all the things that you have heard, all the atmospheres that you have been in, and we have to apply all those different things to our lives. And it's not just because we've been there, it's for us to learn and to add value to ourselves. And it's to say, okay, I got it. And that's the reason why life gives its own pop quizzes. And it's to let you know, did you catch it? No, we got to go back around the mulberry bush again. We about to redo this lesson all over again because you didn't catch it the first time. So there's some times I had to go back around it once again, but then it comes to time like, all right, I've gone through this one enough. Then we're gonna have to get the grit and the fortitude that comes with okay, now it's time to get out of this cycle and to learn what's necessary.
Absolutely. So good. It's so good. So I think about all the time growing up, especially in the religious context that I grew up in and being surrounded by older people. And I was always so amazed at their calm. I mean, I used to, it was the craziest thing. So life would just be, stuff would be happening, stuff be going on. And you sit down and have a conversation with an older person and they just be so calm, and they don't say sometimes they don't say a whole lot, just two or three words, and you sit there and you say, now that make a whole, now you be wrecking your brain, you trying to figure out what to do, how to do, I don't know where to start. You sit down with them, they say two or three things, and you sit back and say, that make a whole lot of sense. That make a whole lot of sense. Even in the times when they would say something as simple as trouble don't last always. And for you to be able to look at, I think now that I think back in retrospect, what made the statement so convincing was their age.
Mm-hmm.
See, there are certain things that it doesn't matter how philosophical or intellectual it sounds. Some of the things that give these words credibility is the age. So when somebody who is old enough to see the sun go from this side to this side a couple of times is qualified to be able to say trouble
Mm-hmm.
don't last always, and I believe it
Mm-hmm.
because they've lived long enough to be able to make this statement. So some of the things that they said, it was the age is what gave it credibility, because I knew they had lived through some stuff.
Oh,
They too had
definitely.
been in seasons and situations where they thought life was all that they could see, but they
Mm-hmm.
had lived long enough to know that I don't care what you're going through, it's not going to be like this always. And it's
Correct.
that I feel like we're missing now. So what do you think about, and we hear people say it, like once on, we see here on social media and stuff like that, um what happened to grandma? What happened to the grandmas? Because you look around now, and what what happened to grandma? Where grandma? Because what happened?
Um, I think grandma's still there. It's just grandma's kind of evolved in a different way. Um, how can I put this? Gone are the days of the household grandmas. Okay. Um, I think that you got different versions of grandmas now. I think people are living longer, people are taking care of themselves in a different way, and I love it. I think that um I love it. I look at some women who are in their 70s and their 80s, and oh my God, they, honey, can put some people to shame. You look at them, you be like, honey, do it. Okay. You like, there's no way you somebody's grandma or great grandma. Like, you got it, lady. Keep doing it. Um, and then there's a group where the femininity, the morality, the character, we've thrown some of that away because we didn't value the stability that grandma gave. Um, I know my grandma, for me, she was my rock, like my best friend. And many people do have that. Um, the world has just changed so much. And I think people are involved in so many things, and nobody stays home anymore. Everybody's uh, got all the different things that they're doing. And grandma was always that safe space, that safe haven. Grandma, a lot of grandmas now, honey, they on trips. They in different countries. They ain't staying at home no more. They, they got stuff to do. Um, I think the wisdom is still there. I think it's just coming in different ways. But I also believe that we have to respect the wisdom as well. I think that in some cases, there are parts in some places where people don't value the wisdom and when it comes and how it comes. And I know for me, um, there was a time, if you ever heard of sitting at the feet of the elders, when you would be at a family reunion or at a gathering or a time like this at Thanksgiving, and everybody would sit down and be quiet and sit at the feet of the elders and let them tell the stories and hear what it was that they had to say. And some people are like, oh, that don't matter now. We don't need that. But it's so much value in that, because a lot of what they're putting out now, and I'm gonna say it, they're trying to wash it out. The true essence of what happened and what was there, if we don't capture it and get it, we're gonna really miss what happened, because they're trying to wash it out and say no, it didn't, but it did. And I was just talking with my mom the other day, and I said, we got to get the family history written down, because a lot of those people are passing away. And if we don't get their history written down, we don't have anything to pass it on to our children, because culture is changing so much and so many things are moving so fast. And a lot of the technology is not taking our history with it. It's not taking our history with it at all. It's trying its best. A lot of the stuff that has our history in it, books have been banned. Stuff that is there you cannot find. They don't want to teach it in school. If we don't know it and get it, we other people, and it's amazing to me that even some of our children don't know certain things about history that we were even taught in school. So, to go back to your question, grandmas are still there. It's just a different type of grandma now.
Yeah,
They
it's
grandmas and Gigi's and all this and all of these. Yeah, they're not just big mamas no more. Mm-mm.
yeah, it's different. Like I remember, even when you mentioned just how at times we don't always value the wisdom. And so I think about the times where I had access,
Correct.
and now I'd give anything
My God.
to sit in some of those rooms again. I'd
Mm-hmm.
give, and I mean, I've in the coach, we both in the coaching space. We've paid dollars to get trained. We've paid to get certified in various things. And I had no idea the value that was in some of those rooms. So I grew up as a church kid. So some of your audience may know, may not know. I'm a church kid. And when I say church kid, I mean like church kid. I'm talking about pre-revival. So when they had pre-revival, this was the week before the revival, when the old saints would come together for 3 days and pray before the
Come on.
revival. And so my grandma would make me go to, and I would be like, why we always got to go to church? I mean, it felt like church was open 7 days a week, and I was
Mm-hmm.
there for 6.5 of those days. And so
Mm-hmm.
I remember sitting in those spaces though, and just the faith that was in the room when you would listen to them pray.
Come on.
And they weren't using big words. They didn't understand some of the theology that we can so eloquently explain now, but the faith that was in the room, the stuff
Mm-hmm.
that they had, the stuff that they believed God for, and the stuff that they had seen God do.
Come
They'd
on.
seen God restore marriages. They'd seen God bring prodigal children back. And so when they prayed, there was a certain atmosphere that got created. The songs they would sing, and there wasn't a whole lot of them in these rooms, but the songs that they would sing, it would create such an environment. And I didn't even know that my faith was being cultivated in those rooms. It was being built in those rooms. It was being sustained in those rooms. And so now, in this season of life that I'm in, I'm reminded of those moments. Like we used to ride the church van. Like this is the kind of church kid I am. We used to ride the church van. So my grandma didn't drive nothing. She didn't drive. So we had, if we weren't riding with the neighbor, we was riding the church van because my grandma wanted to go to Sunday school and all the stuff. So we was on the church van, and it was a couple of the old folks on the church van. Now the church van always used to smell like cough drops, mothballs, that kind of thing. But when I tell you, I would give anything
Yeah.
to sit on that van with some of those people again, just to listen to the stuff that they would talk about. And it was, so it's that kind of wisdom that I'm looking out there now, and I'm just like, I don't know if we have that. Even when I look at my generation, I'm looking out and I'm like, I don't know if by the time we're supposed to be those people, we gonna have that.
We have this. I definitely understand what you're saying. I think we have this philosophical thing going on more so than wisdom. I think people create their own philosophies, but I can't necessarily say it's wisdom in a lot of cases. Um, I, when I think about the mothers of the church, you don't even see a lot of church mothers anymore. Um, you don't even see many mothers boards anymore. And I know people think, oh, we don't need that type of stuff. Let me tell you something. Them saints, they keep you holy. Because when you walked in the church, all they had to do was just look at you. And you would immediately be convicted with the Holy Spirit. Because they would know whether you was right or not. Period. They knew if you was playing, and you know if you was playing or not. Because they was just shrouded in the glory of God. I love it. I love it. I love to hug a mother, sit next to one, because they're full of so much love. Now they'll correct you real quick. They'll tell you something real quick. Um, but they're just full of so much love and so much wisdom. And I miss it too. I really do. I really do. Um, what else you got? What other sayings you have?
So my pastor used to say all the time, what good is knowledge if you die and take it to the grave with you? And that saying has committed me to pouring my life out. So I think about, my childhood pastor, he pastored for 40 years. My home church specifically. So he had pastored some other churches. He pastored my home church for 40 years.
Wow.
And he lived in Aiken. So what was crazy is I didn't even realize how far he was driving until he died. And we went to Aiken for the funeral. And I remember sitting in the car with my current pastor, thinking to myself, are we there yet? So we're talking about an older guy making this drive back and forth up the road a couple times a week. I think about the kind of commitment that you got to have to God, the kind of commitment that I am going to not only give God my best, I'm going to give God's people my best. So when he said that, he used to always say, well, good is knowledge if you die and take it to the grave with you. So now the importance of writing blogs and books and podcasts and so many things, because we want to get everything that's in us out of us, because we don't know who is going to help. We don't know who is going to bless. We don't know who's going to be encouraged by it. And if we're going to be the kind of people that God wants us to be, then we got to be committed to that. And if I hadn't heard him say that and model that, I don't know if I would be as committed to pouring my life out as I am.
That's good. Now this one came about through a friend. I know that this was divine timing. The Lord allowed me to reconnect with someone 20 years later. She had been my best friend from second grade to high school. We disconnected and reconnected 20 years later. And during that time, I had a prayer group that had started. This is before we had what we got now. Zoom and all this other stuff had come on. We were just on the phone, on the line, when free conference call was the thing. Um and I knew that this was a word from the Lord. And the Lord spoke to her and said, "Stop chasing after rejection." And again, this is when I've been delivered from people pleasing. And I literally heard like a vault shut and the dial turn. And God said, "We're not going back." And it was like instant deliverance. And it's one of those things that sometimes we find ourselves, and I see it when people do it because I'm very sensitive to the spirit because I've been delivered from it. When I see people trying so hard to be cordial to people who keep giving you the hand, who keep uh, being rude and mean, and they continuously try to overextend themselves. And I have to tell people, stop chasing after rejection. Stop putting yourself in a position to be rejected, because it's unhealthy, because you keep putting yourself to be torn down, to be hurt, and then you're crying, and then you're sad, and you're trying to go back. God, I don't understand why, but you keep putting yourself in that position. So stop chasing after rejection, especially when you're dealing with someone that's narcissistic. Don't keep putting yourself in that position.
That is so good. That is so good. Because people do it all the time.
Yeah,
God closed the door.
we
We
do.
trying to pick the lock.
Bamming on the door, trying to climb through the window, trying to put your hand up under the door saying, "Let me in." No, God said, "No, leave it alone. Let it be. Let it be."
Because most
Another
because
one.
most of the time, if we honest, he
Go
was
ahead.
trying to keep us from it before it ever happened.
Oh, yeah. Hmm.
And we wouldn't let him. So most of the time when he's trying to drive people away from our lives and we're trying to pull them back, God's like, I was trying to get rid of them before they had to show you why I was trying to get rid of them.
Yeah, rejection is oftentimes God's protection.
Yes, 100%.
Oftentimes God's protection. Um, every new broom will sweep clean.
I heard that one before.
Uh-huh.
I heard that one before. You got to unpack that a little bit. I think it might be some folk that might be a little too.
Well, anything new is gonna sweep clean in the beginning.
My goodness, my.
But eventually, as time goes on, things change. So every new broom is definitely going to sweep clean. So, that comes to times almost like the 80-20 rule. People leave the 80% for the 20%. It's that same thing. Every new broom is going to sweep clean. So, people would discard something let's talk about relationships. People would discard some relationships because they feel like, oh, well, we've grown apart. We're not gelling anymore. But, and then they go try to find something new. But oftentimes you just stop communicating. You haven't uh reestablished anything within the relationship. You're not talking anymore. You're not on a place. A relationship is a continuous place of discovery, because as you're always evolving and you're always growing, it's always a place of discovery. And we should never take for granted that I know that person, so I don't need to know anything else. No, no, no. Especially when it comes to your mate. There's one great book Um, what was her name? Oh my God. I cannot think of her name, and I got the book around here somewhere called Master's Degree in Marriage: How to Master in Your Mate. We should always be studying our mate. We should always be studying that person that we with, because everyone goes through life is going to always change people. I know people say, well, I don't change, I'm the same. No, life will always bring about changes and force you to evolve. And we should always be paying attention to get to a place of something. You should always check in, how you doing, how you feeling, where, are you satisfied? Is there anything I can do differently? It's nothing wrong with asking those questions. So yeah, a new broom go always sweep clean in the beginning till you start getting a little dirt up under it.
Absolutely. And I think, when you mentioned that, it reminded me of why healing in between relationships is so important. Because if you
Mm-hmm.
don't heal, then you go into, because sometimes we end up picking through the filter of pain. And
Come
so
on.
now the only real criteria we had is don't be them. And so, like you said, because this new broom is sweeping clean, you think everything is good. So I always tell people, even with stuff like social media, I see people do it all the time. They get in a new relationship and they want to make the new relationship so amazing, so wonderful, so this and so that. And I'm just like, you don't know enough about this person yet to be on. So because right now, of course, you're gonna feel something that you didn't feel with this person over here when you done been through trauma and all kind of other stuff. So of course this is a breath of fresh air. Of course this is amazing and wonderful. But it's not to say that won't be the case, but you can't prematurely just simply say, oh, this is so amazing, this is so great. And it's like you got to give that thing some time. And so I think people now
Mm-hmm.
are we're having these public failures because of that very fact, is that people aren't thinking
Mm-hmm.
about it, because we're going into these situations using the filter that we brought out of an old relationship. And so as long as it's not my old
Mm-hmm.
relationship, I think it's a good relationship, and that is not always the case. It's just we assume that because it's not that devil, that it's not a devil. It's just a different kind of devil.
Oh, come on. Yes. But we have to make sure that we see people in all four of their seasons. We have to see people when they're angry, when they're sad, when they're grieving. We need to see people at their best, when things are not their best, how they respond through those different situations. Um, because life is not going to always be just all these highs, and how they are with their siblings, with their parents, and so in the gathering with the family, in those situations. It's really good to see them and all, the before you wrap that thing and put a bow on it and say, oh, this is perfect and great. No, you really need to make sure and analyze that whole situation before you say this is it. Before you say this is it. Never give a hungry man your lunchbox.
that sound that sound like a Mother Wallace. That sound like Mother Wallace.
Oh, never give a hungry man, because he gonna eat your food. If somebody's hungry for anything, if they have an appetite for anything, appetite and opportunity, it's probably going to end up in a situation. So, this is why it's very important to have self awareness to know what your appetites are. And if you don't know your triggers and know what your appetites are, and that opportunity comes, you best believe to be ready because you're gonna have to make a decision to what you're gonna do.
Listen, this makes me think about this conversation around people talk about like temptation, and I think people forget that a lot of what we're calling temptation is not temptation because you don't really want it.
Mm,
Like temptation is the combination of desire and opportunity. So
exactly.
there are things that people want they know they can't get. So they'll say, "Oh, I'm delivered." No,
Hmm.
you're not delivered. You just hadn't had an opportunity to present itself to really see whether or not you're actually delivered. So in any situation, even when people start talking about stuff like loyalty and though you can't make those claims until the opportunity has presented itself for the person to not be loyal.
Hmm.
And so that's the thing that I think people don't really think about. But that's good. That's listen. That sounds like an old person saying. That sounds like an old person saying. I love it. Yeah, she need to write a book. We got to get these in a. We got to get these in a book. We got to get these in a book.
Yeah, we are. We are. What you got?
I was trying to. This lady, she used to say, I can't even. I can't think of what how she used to say it. There was a way she used to phrase it, and it was so good. It'll come back to me in a second. It was so good. I see her face.
But I'm gonna share one with you. This is one I had to learn.
Oh Lord.
This one was for me. This is one I had to learn. This one was, don't get swept up in the current of chaos.
My God.
Yes, that was a God moment. That was directly for me. That was a God moment. So there are some people who are divinely assigned to create chaos. And you have to discern and know when certain people come around, certain things kick off in your life, right? And we have to know how to be able to stand our ground and be firm and not get so emotional. And when things happen quickly, not to get caught up in the whirlwind of what's happening and get us off course. And this is when you have to really be firm in your foundation in the word, because there are times that's all the enemy wants to do is get you off track just by a little bit. And we know, and we've had the experience when one thing's happened, one right after another. As quick as you take a step and you get finished with one thing, here comes something else. And it just seems like it's this current that keeps coming. If you've been at the beach and that big wave comes and it swoops you and tumbles you over, sometimes it feels like that's what happens in life. You get swept up in that current of chaos that keeps tumbling you over. You have to make sure that you are really rooted and grounded in your faith and in the word and where you're supposed to be planted, so you don't find yourself way somewhere else than where you're supposed to be, and have said some things that you're not supposed to say that creates a whole nother situation and puts you somewhere else that you're not supposed to be.
Listen, you said something about the beach and the current. Listen, y'all, this don't have nothing to do with, but I just need to say this because y'all, the beach folk, the folks who can get in that water, y'all different, okay? Y'all different because I don't want no parts. If the current gonna get me, it's gonna have to knock on my room door and get me because I'm not going down there. This it's not it's not happening. It's not. It's gonna have to knock on my door and get me. I'm not going nowhere near Jaws in the water. I'm not. No, if Jaws gonna bite me, he gonna.
I won't go now because I don't know what's in there. Now, I'm a true water baby, but it's too much stuff in there now. I won't go.
Yeah,
No, I won't go now.
Jaws gonna have to bite. So I remember what the lady said. So she said, I remember it was a couple of us, we were having a conversation with her, and we're just talking and talking, and she was just real quiet.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, you know, y'all talk a lot. And we all paused and kind of looked at each other. And she leaned forward and she said, if people gonna stone you, make them find their own rocks.
Mm.
And when she
Mm.
said that, we wasn't even old enough to understand what she said. But as you get and you like, woo.
Woo.
And I mean, it was
Mm.
so subtle. She just leaned up and if people gonna stone you, make them find their own rocks. And
My God.
that has always stuck with me, because I think sometimes, even as you mentioned, with people being divinely assigned to create chaos, so there are times where it's not just us saying the wrong thing. There are times when we say the right thing to the wrong people.
Correct.
And so now, and you have no idea what people's intent is. You have no idea what their motives are. You have no idea. And so she was
Mm.
like, "Listen, y'all." She said, "Y'all talk a lot." She's,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but it was so important and so necessary for to say that, because it helps, especially in this age of information today, where there's so much social media and all this stuff. And you look at some of the stuff that people post, and I'm like, somebody will do something that don't make no sense, and then when people criticize them, now it's like, woe is me. And it's like, yo, we wouldn't have known you did that if you didn't tell us. we wouldn't have known if you didn't tell us. We would have had no idea if you didn't tell us. Like, some days I just I wish we can go back to the days where the only way you knew somebody's business is if you actually knew them. That was it. That was it. But now you got access to so much information. So every time, every day, when I'm going down my timeline or any social media platform, I always think about what she said. If people are gonna stone you, make them find their own rocks.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like,
Mm-hmm. That's so true. We give people the ammunition. We give it to them. Because there's some things that do need to be sacred. There are some things that need to be sacred. There's some things that some people should not know. There's some things that just should not be shared. And it's out of the respect for the family, the relationship, your children, privacy. Um, there's just certain things that just you just don't need to share. And I understand everybody wants you to be real and shout at different things.
so how do you balance that? How have you balanced that as a public figure? So given that you're involved in ministry in the coaching space, so there's a part of the kind of work that we do that is very forward facing.
Mm-hmm.
And so how have you been able to decide, okay, this is what gets shared, and this is what, because you said something very important that people always say, oh, you're supposed to be this and that. And one of the things one of my mentors taught me is the difference between being authentic and being transparent.
So I'm gonna share something with you. I learned that people are gonna be people. So I learned this very, very early. I was at a couples ministry. This is when I was married. And I was at a couples ministry. And thinking I was in a safe space. And we preface it safe space, you can share, let's talk, let's have a real conversation. And a lot of people aren't ready for real conversation. I had to learn that very early. So um I shared some things within that space, and immediately the room shifted. People grabbing their husbands, and husbands grabbing their wives, and people all looking all crazy. And I was like, what all? Why did I open my mouth? And you have to truly know and be led by the Holy Spirit. And as I have grown in ministry and I have walked as an armor bearer, I have walked as a minister, I have walked in different capacities in ministry. That's why I say certain things have to stay sacred and kept, because people are still people. And there are many people who are not mature enough to handle your truth and your transparency. Whether they say that they're creating a safe space, some people are still not mature enough to handle it, and you have to be able to discern who it is. And there are some things that are not for the public at large, and there are some things that are only for a person as a confidant that God has created for you to have. And that's just one of those places you just have to continue to walk in and know, God, is this the person? This is not. And if not, Jesus is your best friend, and you just have to stay in that lane. Because some people they're just not there. As much as they want to be, and as many titles as many people have, I have been in rooms with all the titles, and I have heard all the things, and I have been, oh sweet Jesus. So keep it to yourself.
Listen, that is so good. You mentioned something earlier about self awareness. It made me think about it when you mentioned that. So I remember early on in my leadership, I wanted everybody to be like kumbaya. I wanted everybody to be and I discovered quickly. That not everybody, and so for me, it wasn't even any transparency or those kinds of issues. It was, I didn't have the self-awareness to know that there are people who can't always handle the proximity that comes with. So there's a certain way that I work. And so there were people who would they be excited, they be, and you I had to learn that sometimes the best thing you can do for some people is keep them at a distance. No matter how much they want to be close, no matter how much they want this, sometimes the best thing you can do for people is to keep them at a distance and keep them at bay. And that's that was so important and so strong that you shared that, especially in today's culture, because that kind of stuff is so countercultural, because now we've made everything content. So now there is no, people have no more personal lives, people have no more. And I don't knock anybody who, you do whatever you do in terms of how you show up on social media, but I just think sometimes it can get dangerous, and there are no real lines, no real boundaries to separate what is external or front facing versus what is back end, and what belongs to you, or as you said, what is sacred. So I think that's especially important in this social media age.
Well, I know for me, I have what I call my God space. And my God space is those things that are sacred to me. And you have to qualify to be a part of the God space. And those things are the things that I hold very dear. And those things are never seen or talked about. Because that's
I'm gonna say I can't hear you no more.
me now.
Yep.
Okay. So this was a person that was a part of my life at one time. And because I am a very prudent person,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a part of I understood that was a part of my character. Um, they were like, you keep stuff tight to the chest. I was like, I do. Because not knowing why God made me that way, but now understanding in what I'm doing now, especially in coaching and the type of people that I know God has called me to, that I needed to have that character. Because once you talk to me, you talk to me. And there have been many people I've talked to in a lot of different settings that most people would never know that I know those people. And I've had those type of conversations with those people because I don't tell people, I don't name drop. That's not who I am. I've never been that person. And that's very important because when people are looking for someone that they can trust at that level, they want to know and be able to discern the character of a person to say, I know that if I go talk to you, I know I'm not going to hear it from somebody else. And that's something I prayed for because and a lot of that was because me and my brother, we 20 something years apart. Don't ask why. We 20 something years apart. So me being the only child, it was just me. So it was me, myself, and I. So I keep stuff tight to the chest, and I'm okay with that. And for a lot, for some people, they're like, because they want to pull stuff out of you. But no, you ain't gonna be able to say I said it. No,
Listen,
it's
they
not
always
me.
say the less you say, the less they can say you say it.
Okay, not this one. Mm-mm. Nope. All right, I got another one. Use your head for more than a hat rack.
Listen, old folk had this unique way of insulting you without.
In such a cute, wonderful way. Yes, I know. I love it.
If don't be stupid was a person, if use your head for more than a hat rack. I love it. I'm about to start telling people that. Now, when y'all see Savannah,
Yeah.
she telling people that at school, don't use your head for more than a hat rack. Y'all just keep walking. Just I love it. That is, yeah, that's important.
hmm Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Ooh, that one got some depth to it. That one
It
got some
does.
depth to it because that's in order for you to do that, you got to be mature and be able to
Correct.
recognize. Ooh, this a whole nother conversation, but even to be able to recognize, because we see this especially in the religious space. We see this all the time in the religious space, that just because someone has perverted the purpose of a thing. We just want to discard the thing altogether. When there's a way to recognize that someone has perverted this thing without throwing the thing away. So we see it in this argument with, Christianity, and people arguing about, oh, it endorsed slavery and all kinds of stuff. And it's like, yes, there are people who use the Bible to perpetuate the marginalization of women and people of color and so many other things. But we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. So that's a good one. That's one that I find myself having to employ often, because it's easy to just look at a situation and say, I'm done with the whole thing. And it's like, no, there was a purpose, there's an intent, there's some good in that. You just got to get beyond maybe the way this thing is currently being expressed so that you can actually see the good in it.
You have to extract the facts and move the feelings out of it. And oftentimes we put our feelings and shroud our feelings over everything, and we miss the facts that we're supposed to pull out of it, which lies the truth of the matter that we need from it. And we just like, forget it, I don't want to deal with it. No, let's extract it, let's pull it apart. And that takes work. And oftentimes we don't want to sift through it enough to get down to the root of it. Because when you start sifting through it, you got to have a whole nother layer of a conversation. You got to peel back even more and have a lot more deeper dialogue and get down to a deeper level of the conversation that's no longer surface. And you got to have a little bit more of a couple of different types of answers, and you can't just justify it at this level. And let's really get down to the nitty gritty.
Absolutely. So good. So good. Listen, this has been a
Well, golly, it's
li-
already our
listen,
time. Oh Lord.
this has been dope. This is, I feel like a walk down memory lane.
Yeah, this was good, 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 good. Well, I appreciate your time tonight, you all. I hope it was as good for you as it was for us. We thank you so much for joining us. Grateful Hearts, Wise Souls, a Thanksgiving special, as we were talking about different things and sayings that we have learned along the way that has given us some wisdom. And we just kind of talked through those different things tonight. And please share in the comments if you had some different things that you have learned. We would love to continue this dialogue. And we thank you so much for joining us. You all have an amazing Thanksgiving. I'm starting tomorrow. I got to start my cooking tomorrow, y'all, because it's going to be here Thursday. And I'm ready. I'm not eating for the next couple of days so I can get ready to eat on Thanksgiving. I do have to work on Thanksgiving Day, so I'll be celebrating Thanksgiving mostly on Saturday. So I'll eat a little bit on Thursday. Anybody got some? I have sweet potato pie. Anybody have uh some 7 Up cake, red velvet cake? My favorite is Italian cream cheese. Let me know. Yeah, I got to make my potato salad tomorrow. What you having over there, Sean?
Listen,
What
I'm
you
not
cooking?
cooking. I'm cooking absolutely nothing. I don't even know how to boil water. I'm cooking
Oh
absolutely
Lord.
nothing. So I'm gonna eat whatever.
Lady Drill
I'm
says
gonna
she got
cook
my
whatever
pie.
somebody. I'm gonna eat whatever somebody cook. That's how it's going down. I'm excited. I'm
Oh,
excited
oh.
about it. I'm ready to eat. But I echo the sentiments. Hope everybody have a great Thanksgiving. Safe Thanksgiving. Travel safe if they traveling. Eat good and all that good stuff. We'll repent on Friday.
All right. Well, Alicia, we missed you tonight. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Kisses to you. Hopefully, we'll see you next week. You all have the most amazing night. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. We'll talk to you all soon. Thank you. Good night.